This is Angela.
And this is Rachel.
And together we are
Two Tall Ladies! Okay, so I guess really you choose one, I'll choose another, and we'll get started painting. What do you think?
Okay. So we have various different
Nice start.
paints. We have French Ink, we have Fusion, Fairy Sheet, which is quite a new one to me.
Vintage with Grace.
Vintage with Grace, which I haven't used yet. I'm looking forward to trying that. The Authentic Over Santi Matte, that's beautiful stuff. So I'm going to go with that because I just love the colour. French Ink, Kiss Me Slowly.
Right, I am going to go with Vintage with Grace, and this is Peacock. So let's.
Well,
have a
actually, this is almost like a peacock. We're going to create a peacock.
look. I think that's a great idea. So I guess we should talk about looking after your tins of paint, Rachel, while we're talking about this, because I am really bad.
Yeah, it really pays to a little tape. You can get a rubber band when you open a tin of paint. Put the rubber band round your tin like that, and you can always just wipe your brush off on the rubber band.
And then you don't get that, what I get. So
Because when that happens, not only does your lid not go on properly, so air gets in there, but the little dried bits fall into your paint. Then when you paint, you've got to keep picking the bits off. So it does pay to look after your tins.
and it's such a
Naughty
shame.
Angela.
I know. I promise to try harder. But it's such a shame because this is such lovely paint as well. So hopefully I haven't ruined it.
Right.
So I'm going to talk quickly about the brushes that I prefer even. I'm going to talk about the brushes that I prefer. I like to work with a short bristled brush, and I really like these Valspar ones. So we're not always going to be looking at the paint brands and what the brushes that they provide, although we will, but we're going to look at all the alternatives so that if you haven't got a stockist, or if you've got a piece, everybody's got a B&Q near them. So these are amazing brushes. What have
Also
you
the
got?
paint pads as well. I've heard
Yeah.
really good reviews about those who need to try paint pads.
Yeah, we do.
Especially on bigger pieces.
And rollers.
Rollers, yeah.
There's just so many options.
The
But today I'm going to be using one of my trusty brushes, which is quite well worn,
like
but
a
I
faithful
absolutely
old
love
dog,
it.
that one, isn't it?
Yeah. And for me, I find that if I hold the brush quite low down, I've got much more control over the bristles, and I think that's why I prefer a short bristled
Yes,
brush
yeah.
as well, because I've got real control over the paint and how much it goes on.
Yeah.
So what brush are you using?
Well, I'm going to use this brush. This is a Fusion brush. Much longer bristles. I've not used a Fusion brush before, so this is a new one on me as well.
And they're both, neither one of these brushes are natural hair, are they? They're
No,
both
synthetics.
synthetics.
Yes.
And there are projects where natural hair brushes might be better, and sometimes you can get a mix of natural and synthetic finers. But for now we're both using
I thought, put the cat.
Right, let's go paint.
Come on then.
Okay, so for me, I like to build the paint up in really thin layers. So I always start with a real scraggy coat.
Always better.
But look, straight away you can see the coverage on that for...
That is compared to
great.
this, much better coverage.
Do you think
I dribbled.
the colours, all the colours, and it doesn't matter which range you're using, but the colours themselves decide whether or not you're going to get a good coverage in how many coats, because there are certain colours that are really notoriously hard to paint with.
Yes.
And one of them, the yellow, pink, white, cream, they are really hard, and that is not a great coverage on that colour, is it?
No.
Whereas
Not
this
at
is
all.
given a fabulous first, and it's drying really nice and fast. How's yours?
Can't see any drying patches yet. But I must
Is it because you
say,
didn't shake it or stir it?
I gave it a little stir, but
Did you?
you're not supposed to. They don't say that you have to.
Right. I didn't, and this has been stood
Yeah.
for some time, but
That
it's
is a
still
lot
really
thicker.
thick. Yeah, it's nice and thick, but it's
The
creamy.
vintage with Grace
I
is a lot thicker than the French Oak.
Yeah, I can't really see any paintbrush marks on this
I can on that one.
as it dries either. So we'll see. We'll come
Yeah.
back to that one. 'Cause,
Okay.
I've never known any paint give you great one coat coverage.
No,
You always need to build up.
I don't think that exists.
I don't either. And it's also a fact that the more layers you put on, the stronger the paint is when it's finished.
Yes.
Because it all
It
binds
all
together.
bonds together.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's choose another colour.
These paints can dry pretty quickly on your brush, so once you've done a coat, you can either wrap it in a plastic bag.
Yeah. We
or
have
cling film.
handy dog poo bags in our house. We have 3 dogs, so we've always got a nice selection of poo bags, so that's going to save that. And actually, I'm going to put the lid on for now as well, so we'll come back to that.
He's a little
Right.
shy.
So I'm quite interested to try some Authentico as well.
Okay.
Which one do you think is the most peacock colour?
Probably that, yeah. Although that is such a beautiful, vibrant red.
Is it?
It's
We might
gorgeous.
try
I use that on the
one.
inside of that cherry bureau.
It'd be interesting to see
Just
the
pops.
coverage on this. Shall I do half in one and half in the other just to see the different coverage?
Yeah. Why not?
Different colours. I think we might need some more paintbrushes shortly. So I'm going to again stick with my friendly.
I'm going to try the
Rose
Fusion. Just, I've only got the Fusion in Ash, which is quite a dark charcoal. I'm going to try a little shorty brush.
So let's see. This is a nice thick creamy paint. Again, the coverage looks really nice for one coat.
The Fusion just glides on. It's like silky.
That's not a bad coverage.
That's not a bad coverage at all,
I
is
can
it?
see some brush marks in it. It's not drying ultra fast, so I've got a bit of working time in it, so I can pull it thinner. Let's get rid of that. We don't want any globule bits in there.
That is just beautiful. Love Fusion.
That's covered amazing, actually. I was going to say we might have found a one coat paint, but
No,
No.
not quite.
no. So okay, have we got any brush marks?
But I guess you could be tempted to put a thicker coat on, but you are better always
To work with
doing at least 2.
Yeah, I agree. Never ever try to get full coverage with one coat, because what happens is you end up putting far too much paint on and making it too thick, and it's really hard. You start to get runs in your paint. It starts to collect on the edges of your piece as well, and then it dries with a nice little ridge running down the edge, which is really hard. And the only way to get rid of it is to sand the whole ridge off, and then you've got to start again
On the edges
covering.
again, yeah.
So always check your edges, and when we show you painting chairs, you'll really start to see what that means, because when you've got so many edges on the legs and the backs of chairs, it's really easy to allow the paint to get too thick and run off the edge. Right,
Shall we use the fairy sheet, because we've not used that one yet?
Yeah,
I love that colour. Look at that colour. Oh, that's just
that is
delicious.
gorgeous.
It's a beautiful colour. Plum pudding that on. The plum pudding in French Heat takes loads and loads of coats. The pigment's not right strong in that one.
Which one's that?
That
Really?
particular one, yeah.
Oh, there.
The for a white, the Authentico Versante Matte, that covers ever so nice.
Does
for a
it?
white, yeah.
Maybe we'll do the middle white.
Yes, yeah.
I'm dying to try that red.
Do it. And that one's still got the plastic on, I think.
Smells always an issue as well on some paints, don't you
Is
think?
it time to If I'd have been letting you smell that, I would have made you into Rudolph.
I'm glad it wasn't.
You're too slow there.
This has got. This reminds me of.
I'm
It's
not
got
falling for it
it's
now.
got a faint whiff of copy decks. Remember that? Remember that school glue?
Yeah.
That's hardly got any smell. It's got a slight paint smell, but hardly any. Oh, that's a very similar colour. So it'll be interesting to see how that covers.
Do we have a knife on here at all?
Oh,
Look at that.
that is a lovely colour. It's quite cherry.
Yes. It's like a raspberry red, I think.
Yeah.
It's got a real vibrancy to it.
Yeah. I expect when you put a few coats on, it'll go much darker. But
I
it
painted
is
my
very
nails with
cherry.
it.
Oh,
Do you know, I'm going to demonstrate with a sponge brush. They can work quite nice, these actually, and sometimes I use, you know, the washing sponges, the pot sponges.
oh yeah.
I use them.
To actually paint with or as a finish?
I have done as a finish sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, always, to be fair, with the like the finishing coat and stuff. And when I use it as an undercoat, put it on with a sponge. But I have actually done things with sponges.
I haven't ever used a sponge as to finish off, to put varnish or something on, because then you don't get your paintbrushes. That's going on really nice with that though.
That is therapeutic. Oh, that feels so nice. Oh, and because you can sort of lay it back off with it as well. It looks like it starts drying pretty fast.
So when we talk about laying off, what we mean is that when you put your paint on and it's a little bit thick and maybe you've got some brush marks in it, if you just run, as Rachel just did, if you just run the sponge or your brush down your paint in one,
Very lightly.
very light, going
Strokes.
one way, very light strokes, and then it'll take off your excess paint. And I probably need to do it there where I've painted sideways. So a really nice way to finish each section of paint is to just run your brush in one direction from start to finish, and then you don't get globules where you're finished and marked, or if there are paintbrush marks in and you finish halfway and there's been a little flick of your brush, you can see that when you finish. So by laying off, you won't get that. You'll just get a really nice flat smooth finish.
I do find with the Authentico that
Got nice hair there.
you get, oh sorry, it's a grey one, it's not
Probably a dog
mine.
hair.
I'll get that with a knife.
If you push your brush into it, it'll pick it up.
Yeah, you get a little bit of playtime with the Authentico infusion, I think.
Yeah. Got it. I can't see it on there now.
Yeah, that's it.
Good.
Wait, is it still on there?
Or did you
That's
just
it.
wipe it back on again?
I don't think I got it off in the first place. Maybe I need some new specs. That'll cover on the next one.
Good. So, do you want to paint that white?
Certainly can.
Shall I start doing the second coats on while
Yes,
you paint the
yeah.
white? And then we'll dry it with a
Dry
hair
enough.
dryer. Some of them are.
That's still a little bit
Yeah,
black.
it is a little bit down.
Yeah. Now we need Super Simon to the rescue.
Just get in the hairdryer.
Just going to do some second coats first. So I'm just looking to see how it's dried. It's dried nice and flat. It feels nice and smooth.
That, you know, out of all the paints, Angela. That has got the best coverage,
Yeah,
hasn't it?
I think so.
That
for
has just
first
dried
coat.
so smooth.
Yeah, feels really nice. See how the others.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it really has.
So let's see how the second coat goes on. So what I like to do is I like to start in the middle, and then you can stretch your paint either way, and it gives you a nice even coat. What bits in my tin from not looking after it properly, but even they've just come out. So I'm going to put it on, and then I'm going to do that laying off, and even the second coat has gone on really lovely and smooth. Good.
And played with hairs, wasn't Martin?
I think we've probably got hair in the air with
We-
the dogs.
Yeah,
Hair of the dog.
And hair of the dog.
I think we need.
A cup of coffee.
Oh yes. There
Come
it
on,
is.
Super Simon's on it already. Look.
Everybody needs a Super Simon. Look, absolutely. It's like my cats are full of others. You see, for white, that's good for a first coverage, don't
It's
you
not
think?
bad at all. Yeah, that's not bad at all, Rachel. I think the others are not quite dry yet, so I'll just put the hairdryer on. Your hairdryer is your best friend, don't you think, when you've got a few coats to do?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. I'm going to do a second coat.
4
of
brushes
it.
in one poo bag.
You can feel the brush marks, I think, in that a little
Yeah.
bit, don't you?
Yes.
It's not super smooth like that. That's very smooth. Which one was this? Fairy Chic.
That was a Fairy Chic.
And that's quite nice coverage.
Raja.
It is a little bit translucent, more translucent than the Vintage with Grey,
Yes,
and
definitely.
very translucent in the purple.
And that's a Fusion Ash.
So let's have a look at the Authentico.
So I'm going to do this one first.
It is a lovely colour. Sometimes though, it's nice to have a quite a translucent paint, because if you want to give that washed effect, especially if you're working in and if you're designing an effect that you still want to see some wood grain through
Yes,
your piece.
like a beachy effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then having a quite a translucent colour or a translucent paint is ideal, because
Yes.
you colour it
Colour
without.
it with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do like that look on
I do as
on
well.
a lot of things. I've done a white dresser and I've sort of done it like that so that it's not full coverage.
Yeah.
It looks really
It's
nice.
different paints are good for different things, aren't it?
Yeah.
That's covering better though on the second coat. Did you shake it this time?
Yes. I shook it more this
Right.
time.
Did you shake it like a Polaroid picture?
Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it, baby. Got a little bit of white there, stuck on the brush. 4 brushes in one bag is not ideal.
4 brushes in a funeral.
Oh look, I'm doing it again, not putting it on.
Yeah, that has covered really nice now.
Yeah. It's very
So,
vibrant, isn't it?
yes, yeah. Quite often, if you do have to do the 3rd coat, you need very little
Minutes.
paint.
Right.
Just the fusion. Better go lamps in here.
So, do you think the way that the look now is moved on from the old shabby chic look? I
I'd
don't
like
get
to
asked
think
for
not
that.
because I do love shabby chic.
Do you get asked for it by your customers?
Yes, I do actually. I've got one lady, I've done quite a lot of things for her in a lovely sage green. And I always sort of knock the edges off for her. She likes
Right.
that vintage look. I think it is I know fashions change, and I do like the really perfectly painted piece. But I find that if you've got an old piece and you've got the top natural,
Mm.
and then when everything else is painted really crisp and strong solid colour, it looks nice, but then if I just take the edges off the drawers, it just pulls it all together. But that is a personal thing.
And I think as well that wood is actually becoming fashionable again,
Yes.
especially the beautiful grains of
We're
walnut.
buggered, aren't we?
Well, I mean, I've seen there are some really talented people who are really pulling together both that wood and the painted effect.
Yes, I do like that.
Looks sensational
I love,
if it's done right.
The
it
burr
looks
walnut,
really good.
yeah. And then
really nice.
and then like black with it. Oh,
Yeah,
beautiful.
there's some really talented people.
I think that's where we might go with the utility
I
cocktail
think that's a great
cabinet.
idea. Yeah, I'd love to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
So,
probably a
done
really
that,
good
done that.
way to finish. Or shall we just do a quick?
Do a second coat on
All
that
right.
one. That's not had a
We've got 1 minute
Sure.
left of this.
Okay. What was this one? That was the
So do we need to
easy
do the
one.
white again? Which
Yes.
is this?
Yeah.
Have you got a brush for that?
You're not playing ball.
Just not being strong enough with it. That smells quite nice as well. It's got quite a. There's some really nice finishes there. The flattest one is, smoothest one is definitely
Yes,
the vintage
absolutely.
Grace.
Absolutely.
Vintage by Grace, sorry. Okay, so we're back now. We've waited for the second coat of the paint to dry. Rachel has also put in a third coat on the white because it was still quite opaque. And we wanted to give you a good overview of what it takes to get good coverage with each of the paints. So which one was this, the white one?
That was the Authentico Centimat.
Right, so it's had 3 coats now. Everything else has had 2 coats. And you can see that we've got some really good coverage. So when you look at the different paints, we're just going to show you what finish we've got on each of the paints. So we started with, I started with this one first, which is the Vintage by Grace. It's dried really super smooth and very flat matte. Out of all of them, that's the smoothest, flattest finish that we've got. And then these 3, these 2 were the, these 3 were, these two were the Authentico. And on the, see, what's that one called? I can't see without my glasses. Nautique. Okay, so with the Nautique, it did feel a little bit thick, and we do have some slight brush marks in there. Remember, we use the same brushes for different paints, and we have got a slightly different finish.
The ruby.
The ruby is got a nice slight sheen to it, whereas I can't see that sheen on the Nautique.
No, neither can I. And they're both for Centimat.
Yeah. So yeah, that's slightly more matte than that. It's got a lovely sheen. It does feel nice and smooth, and its coverage is pretty good. I think it could probably do with a third coat. If I was painting a piece, I'd definitely do a third coat with that.
Yeah. And then this one is the Frenchique Kiss Me Slowly, which is a alfresco range, so that can be used outdoors or indoors. It doesn't need sealing or anything. It is quite a nice smooth finish.
It's very smooth.
Got a slight sheen to it.
Yeah. That's the most sheen out of all of them, I'd say.
The alfresco is really quite nice to use, actually. The darker one is a Fusions Ash, and that's more matte. Still got a little bit of a sheen on.
Ever so slight, isn't it?
Yeah. But again, I think that all could do with the third coat. And then that was a Fairy Chic one.
Yeah.
Raja,
So
which is a little bit brushed. That was the sponge.
that was the sponge, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was because you put it on with a sponge and it was
Yeah.
really thin.
Maybe we'll try a third coat with a
Yeah,
brush.
it definitely needs a third coat.
Yeah.
So we've given them
Do
some
that.
good drying time. Most paints take 28 to 30 days for curing, which means that all of the water will evaporate out and you're just left with the paint then. And that's when it becomes its strongest then.